so nice to have you on. I feel like it's been a little while.
It's been a hot minute.
Welcome. Happy 2025. Yeehaw. It's the first potty of the year. Feeling stoked to be back in the hottie with my girl Rihanna from Being Acupuncture. To begin with, I thought I'd start with this one that's been prevalent. So, we often talk about the idea that we all have a lot of power and a lot of us are scared of harnessing it. You call it fear of bigness. Where do you think that comes from, and what's the best approach to transforming it?
I don't know the answer to that other than my own speculation. With the bigness, I think there's probably a lot of primal aspects to it as far as did you watch Chimp Empire?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good example for anyone that's watched that. Or for anyone that hasn't watched that, it's filmmakers that follow around chimpanzees for like 2 years and document the different characters and tribes within it. And it's really obvious when you watch these primates, the social structure. So it's really interesting, particularly for men. Either you're that alpha kind of type
Yeah.
that you're fighting to be the alpha,
Yeah.
or you're not, and you have to find a job somewhere, something small to be able to do,
Yeah.
to be able to remain part of the drive. Because if you don't offer anything, you are basically ousted. Then you're not groomed, and
Yeah.
you die. So I think with that, there's a certain amount of people that aren't shy to be big, and I'm sort of like, don't really want to call them alphas, but they don't mind if they're cut down. They don't mind if they're ousted.
Yeah.
They don't mind if they walk a different path to the average. And then for the rest of us, we think that if we step out of line from the average, we will be ousted from the tribe. And if you are ousted from a tribe, being a social, humans are a social creature.
Yeah.
Then if you cut out from that, you don't survive. So I think it's yeah, we're scared to be big because what if people don't like us?
Yeah.
Or what if people don't like what we say? Or yeah, what if basically social conditioning. So in one ways, there is a certain amount of population that like bigger the better.
Yeah.
But then you'll see all the ones that are operating smaller, ragging them for it.
Yeah. Copy.
Yeah. So I think largely it comes back to social. There's another part of that if it's not tribal and not social, it's worry about owning it.
Yes.
Because if I want something big or I have a big goal or my personality's big or whatever, it's ironic because the less we own it, the more it will squish out sideways and probably be not that nice. But if somebody owns their bigness, then they have to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
So
That's what it is.
it's like if I have that big dream, that big goal, and I voice it, I have to do something about it.
Yeah.
Or I have to follow it, or I have to actually listen to that rather than keeping myself small and being like, the world is unkind, or it's okay for that person because they were born with money, or, whatever those things are.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to actually step into that power of what it would mean to hold that.
So would you say the elixir is just going straight towards the thing that you fear, which is bigness?
Pretty much, but I would say like an old art teacher of mine used to say everybody wants to paint the masterpiece. So everybody wants to paint on these big canvases. And he was like, practice your masterpiece on something this big.
Yeah.
Because then, if it was the same picture,
Yeah.
and you could have half of that canvas being a total mistake that you're like, oh my gosh, sheesh, I should have put dark instead of light first, or whatever the problem is. You only have to fix this much.
Yeah.
Whereas on a big canvas, you have to fix that much.
That's true.
So I would say
Baby
like
steps.
practice your bigness.
Yeah.
Like practice with little things,
Yeah.
practice with the social group around you, practice with whatever, and just see what happens.
Okay.
Because you might, it's like an experiment in truth, really. And then you might redefine that maybe the picture you were painting for your masterpiece actually wasn't that was just the practice picture before the thing. You might figure that out along the way. Or you might figure out who are your friends that are actually going to embrace you and get behind you in those things.
Yeah.
And who's not.
So good. I like that we get to start small.
You start little and strengthen those muscles, because it is, I think, exercise is an easy analogy to pin it against. You know, if I wanted to be a weightlifter or even just be stronger than I am, I'm not going to start lifting huge things in complex patterns that my body is not used to.
Yeah.
I'm going to find the right trainer, lift small things in simple patterns until my body is adapt to that, and then I will add and I will add and I will add and I will add. Because I think most of the time, if we shoot too big too soon, then it keeps it true that we're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because you've set yourself up to fail.
True. That makes all the sense. I've been noticing major themes of duality in my life over the past few years. Is this something that you notice quite a bit of too?
Yeah, it's something I've always massively struggled with. But I think I find it a lot more amusing now. I used to find it really frustrating. But just to get a bit woo-woo, I guess it's literally the reality that we live in. Like, we live in a dualistic reality. That is the third dimension: light, dark, good, evil, day, night, yin, yang.
Yeah.
That it is part of our reality.
Yeah.
And I will say, though, I think it's the analogy I sometimes use is like, if every coin had heads on both sides, because we want it to be sunny or we want X outcome, and we don't actually acknowledge the tail side, all we've got is counterfeit money.
Yeah.
So it's like, when we acknowledge heads and we acknowledge tails, even if we have preference to one, it's okay. But when we acknowledge both sides, that's when we have a whole coin. So the only way that we can reconcile duality is acknowledging both. I also say, like, nature shows us that it's duality. We have in a 24-hour day, half day, half night.
Yeah.
And if, like, nature constantly shows us that, but it's our rejection of night, or it's our rejection of day, that, because night and day, it's like exactly the same thing. If we were sitting here tonight, this is the same kitchen, but yet energetically it feels completely different.
So different.
So they're bringing two aspects.
Yeah.
Some really pleasant. It's also not very nice if you're sitting out in the sun and you're completely cooked and sunburned. You'll do anything to find some dark.
Yeah.
So if it was always sunny, we would go crazy. If it was always night, we'd go crazy. It's like, we actually need both, because they bring both two different things.
Yeah. True, Magoo. The other night on our Zoom call, I believe you said something along the lines of the antidote to anxiety is presence. And then you elaborated on how important breath is. I was wondering if you could kind of spin on that, because I've been noticing over the past couple of days, when noticing myself out of presence, just being like, oh wait, I got that tool. I can just come into presence, and then the anxiety just goes away.
Yeah. Anxiety is such an interesting thing, and I always say, like, no different to night and day, anxiety can be useful, just like you said, to notice, oh, I'm not in presence.
Yeah.
Or, so anxiety can be a really cool oil light in the car to be like, change your oil. So I notice if I'm anxious, cool, I'm out of present time. Because when I'm anxious and experiencing anxiety, basically kind of what these things mean from a nervous system level is, A, my breath isn't regulated, and B, I'm scattered all over the place. So I'm in multiple places at once. I'm thinking about, shit, I shouldn't have said that. Oh my gosh, why do I feel this way in my body? I wish things were different. I wish things were different. I wish things were different. And it's like hope marketing. You know, it's like, you know, actually acknowledging that, like, cool, I'm actually beside myself. I'm not with myself.
Yeah, I'm beside myself. I'm not with myself. Yeah, that's a good
So obviously there's different levels of anxiety, and sometimes it can get really pathological. And I know that for anybody experiencing that kind of pathological anxiety, they would probably find this very insulting. But it's a little bit like, you know, rather than, if the masterpiece is fix my anxiety, practice something. Breath and presence are free, and they are literally the antidote. So I'm not saying it wouldn't take time. I'm not saying you wouldn't have to have other help or talk tools or support to get you there. But fundamentally, it's disempowering to yourself to say that you can't get there on your own as well. So empower yourself that you might not be able to get to that whole masterpiece yourself and might need a few helping hands along the way, and that's okay. But even breaths in and out, there's so many different hold patterns and all those things you can do. But I find generally if people are experiencing a lot of anxiety, it's really hard for them to remember. So I always just say 5 or 6 breaths in, 5 or 6 breaths out. Like, and if you can only get to 3 breaths, that's okay. 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out. And then whenever you feel you can add another one, add another one. But I think largely, if I was in an anxious situation where I was like, oh my gosh, holy fuck, my world's imploding. And especially like if that was happening to me now, for instance, where I can't be like, oh, just hold on a minute, doll, I'm going to have a few breaths. But you'd find that most of the time breath is available. But if I wasn't in that situation, that I could do that, I ask myself, like, how can I be here more fully? Or how can I arrive more fully? Like I noticed like the thinking of like, did I leave the oven on, that incessant thing, to be like, how can I be here? Like, how can I actually be with Capucine? And when I ask myself that, just asking the question, I find my body almost answers it. Like your face becomes more clear, and I start to, I start on the canvas this big. And even if it only alleviates at 5 or 10%, it's better than it escalating 5 or 10%.
Wow, so many more themes of just starting small. It's funny, hey?
Yes.
Epic. So we've been doing quite a little bit of stalking the inner critic work over the past couple of. It's thirsty work. Why do you think we have so many voices in our heads?
A lot of that learned behavior is about safety.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, a lot of those voices are trying to keep us safe, or they're trying to keep an old pattern running because they're trying to be relevant.
Yeah.
So if we, like the way the amygdala works, as far as if I've stepped in front of a car before and realized, either the full consequence of getting hit by a car, the shock of like, oh my God, as I save myself, as your mother grabs you, as whatever the situation happens, and then you realize, oh gosh, don't do that. So the amygdala will store information and basically be like, hey, that's a bit deathy, this is that, whatever. But no different to as we grow in life or in exercise. Imagine once again, if I wanted to become a weightlifter and I was starting small, and once I attempted to pick up a weight that was just a bit too big at the time, and it was just the feedback was like too big now, but for whatever reason my nervous system reacts to that, and then I stay on these little weights, even though I'm well past that in growth, because once I tried a big weight and it was too much for my nervous system, so I've learned, no, don't do that. So a lot of the time when we're children, and obviously we want to grow through those years, but our parents trying to keep us safe, will most of the time give us these patterns. Don't do this, 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 don't do this. And we learn that, and then we somewhere have to challenge the voices to be able to drop the voices, because a lot of the time they're so ingrained. So sorry, what was the original question? Because safety is one of the answers, and then they're
like, where do the fucking voices come from, or how do we get friendly with them?
Getting friendly with them, I think, is a really cool thing, because as well, coming back to your duality, you'll probably find that most voices have an opposing voice. So there was one voice that's like, yeah, cool, jump off that bridge into the water, that's fun, it'll be beautiful. And the other voice is like, don't fucking jump off the bridge. So generally I find the easiest way to become friends with them is to either shape shift into each of them, whether or not it's like a meditative type thing, and being like, okay, the voice that's saying don't jump off the bridge, hear it out,
have a conversation,
become it fully, and almost in a listening way, you're just listening to it, no rebuttal, and then it's like, cool, when it's spent of talking, go to the second voice, listen to it fully, be present with that voice, and then largely you can generally come to some sort of reconcile yourself, even if it's only a tiny amount of difference
Yeah.
as your truth of like, oh, this voice makes me contract, but that voice makes me feel a bit open. Okay, cool. And then other times, almost get them to have a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
Like, cool, all right. And then it's like, all right, shh, voice, what do you want to say to this one?
Yeah.
And it's almost like if you had two family members that were fighting, that you're almost irrelevant. You don't really have to do anything. It's just being there to mediate. You shush, you speak.
Yeah.
Now you shush, you speak.
Yeah.
And you watch it. You almost like watch it play out or listen to it.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit hard for some people if they're not used to self-reflection in that way. But the other thing would be to journal it. Be like, okay, the negative voice, or even if we don't want to say negative, the voice that doesn't want to do X, give it some pages in your journal and just let your pen flow. Vice versa, give the next one. And then it's like when I've done exercises like that, sometimes when I've looked back, if it wasn't in my handwriting, I wouldn't have believed that came out of me.
Fully.
But you can keep pressing that voice of like, why? Almost be that annoying child.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, why? Why shouldn't I jump off the bridge?
Yeah.
Oh, but why? Oh, but why? Oh, but why? And like, yeah, once again, be playful just to see what wisdom it has. Because generally both voices have some wisdom. They do polarize each other. Okay. But it's about finding our truth.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I went through a little stage. I've been actually doing those exercises recently when I've been in a time of turmoil. And then I think I just got to a stage where I was just like, I'm just going to detach from just literally as many stories as I possibly can and go more into feeling. Yeah. And it's been great. But now I'm a bit nervous and I'm going to lose full head focus. But I'm still doing things, so it's fine. It's just funny when you start to really just be like, fuck, let it kick up. Ride the roller coaster.
Pretty much allowing it. It's like the two sides of the coin again. If you allow heads, you allow tails, you give them both an opportunity. Yeah. But yeah, that's the other thing is like, are we thinking our way through life or are we feeling our way through life? So that's another thing. I would, in reconciling those voices, I would be noticing, which one, how does each one make you feel? Yeah. Because it's a good one. Even if you go, oh, well, X excites me more or whatever the thing is, and I went for that. Yeah. And it meant that, you know what, I embarrassed myself so deeply that my boyfriend broke up with me, or, you know, something like that, that at the time is devastating. Yeah. But then, of course, you look back and you'd be like, whoa, if someone wasn't going to hold you in embarrassment, then they don't deserve to be with you in your good times either, you know, like, or whatever those things are that you can make a apparently catastrophic decision that you're like, holy shit, I never should have listened to those things. Yeah. But ultimately it's going to work out best for you. For sure. But I think the more present that we are with those things or those voices, the more opportunity that we have to genuinely hear what they're saying. Yeah. And then you will also hear their bullshit. Yeah. Like you will hear that voice that's just trying to cling on because, but that's part of the mind trap when you said, oh, you know, then worried about like, you know, what if I just go to all the feelies and then
no mind.
Yeah, totally. And that can be the scary thing. But it's like, don't worry about it. The mind is potent enough that it'll always hang around. But that's part of the mind's cling because the mind wants to survive. Yeah. So he always wants to be in control. Yeah. So yeah, he's the cheeky little devil that's been like demoted for a certain amount of time and is like, yeah, cool, all right, I'll let you step in while I'm on leave. But I'm coming back.
You just don't know when.
Yeah.
And why do you think we resist life in general? Things that are happening and just what's before us.
Fear, control, mind.
Fear, control, mind.
So it's the head trying to solve the problems. Yeah. Pretty much just fear. It means you're in your head and not necessarily in your body. Yeah. Because I feel like if it's a genuine safety no from the body, it's not resisting, it's just no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's strong. Yeah. Last year you taught me a lot about having a nothing to lose mentality. I feel like you go through life in a good way like that. I wondered if you could tell a story in where you did have a nothing to lose mentality.
I think I've always got something to gain even when I'm losing. And obviously you need to learn to leave the table when love's not being served, or if you're pouring a hectic amount of money into a business that is failing, you need to be honest with yourself. But other than those choice points of like things going too far, I think I do have everything to gain because I get to watch. So, for instance, okay, so when Alistair and I were getting together, and neither of us had committed to each other, I guess. And it struck me at a point that like, I'm like, I don't want to see other people. But I've never wanted to ask something of someone that they weren't willing to give, because if they're willing to give it, they'll give it.
Yeah.
And if they're withholding, whether it's because of their own fear or because they have different agendas, that is up to them.
Yeah.
I never want to convince.
No.
So I said to him at the time, like, hey, just so you know, I don't want to see other people, but it's up to you if you want to do that. And at the time, he was kind of like, ugh, and didn't really say anything. And then ended up calling me whenever it was, and was like, pretty much I reacted to that really poorly because I didn't know if I wanted to be taken off the market, and he was having his own little meltdown. And then goes, yeah, cool, I don't want to see other people too. So it's like, in that example, and I genuinely didn't care if he did want to see other people, because what mattered to me was my truth.
Yeah.
And if he still wanted to go around and seeing other people, then I either need to deal with that and be like, cool, he will either come around when he's ready, or he'll never be ready. But either way, why would I want to convince him that even if my heart wanted that, his heart needs to align to the same and come from the same place of making his own decision.
Yeah.
So for me, it's, I guess, trust that there's nothing for me to fuck up.
Yeah.
I can experiment with life. And for me at that time, that was my canvas. I didn't know if we were going to paint a masterpiece together.
Yeah.
But it was like, cool, what I knew in myself was enough of my truth. And I guess having the courage to speak it, because whether or not he says to me, yeah, cool, I still want to see other people, I know my answer.
Yeah.
And if I can't deal with that, then leave.
Yeah.
Or if I can deal with that and let him play it out, then deal with that and let him play it out. But I don't see the point in withholding my truth to wait for his. If my oven's dinged and I'm like, oh, I don't want to see other people, I'm not going to leave my chicken in the oven.
Nice.
Like, it's just going to get dry and crispy. And then and that's when anxiety is, because then I'm future projecting, going, oh my God, is he, oh my God, what if I leave the room to take my chicken out of the oven? What if I do the thing? What if I do it? And it's just like, no. Yeah, I kind of think nothing ventured, nothing gained. And either way, I gain information, but the only thing I can do is take responsibility for myself and the way I feel. It's too heavy for me to take responsibility for how other people feel. So if he felt differently, he feels differently. And I'm not saying that things don't hurt. I'm just saying I would prefer I'm probably like to be pretty efficient. That's my masculine side. So I would prefer to throw in the thing and then see. And then, because I think that even hurt or even pain is valuable in itself. Not that I would go out asking for pain, and I'm not a sadist looking for pain. But if it happens and it's there, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. How quickly did you start to feel those sentiments of not wanting to see other people?
Pretty quickly. I think with Alistair, it was an interesting place because I'd actually just been dumped. So the first time that I'd ever really experienced that heartbreak. And it was, I will say, it was easier for me in that time because that man was the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
So I didn't give a fuck. It was extra don't give a fuck. I know I'm normally pretty don't give a fuck, but I was extra. Like, I think what that time taught me of being heartbroken was about love and about unconditional love. And if I loved the guy that dumped me, then I can't not love him just because he dumped me.
Yeah.
So I was exercising how much can I love despite pain,
Yeah.
but not in the wanting. Once again, I don't need
Yeah.
to convince him to be with me, but I think that was also part of the cool experiment for me was like, I'm not going to convince you
Yeah.
because I know I'm worth it.
Fucking oath.
And if I'm not worth it for you, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I want someone that actually wants me,
Yeah.
not wants the idea of me or
Yeah.
wants the this or wants the that or blah, blah, blah. So I think when I met Alistair, it was really like, it was kind of confronting because it was like, I guess at first I didn't think there was going to be anything romantic there. And then when I realized, oh, there's something romantic here, at first I was like, oh, there's something romantic. And then I'm like, oh, that's a bit soon. And then I was like, I've never really had a stereotypical rebound, maybe. I don't know, maybe I have, but there's never really that obvious person of like, oh, you break up and you have the rebound. I never really had that full thing. If anything, I was like, you break up and it's like,
Yeah.
so at first I was like, oh, maybe this is my rebound and this is like, this is what happens. And like, okay. And then it was like, oh, cool, I'll try those socks on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, when it became really obvious to me was he was living in Melbourne at the time and he came up and then I went to, we had a weekend together and then I was driving him to the airport, but we were living in Ocean Shores at the time, or I was living in Ocean Shores at the time, and he was upstairs in the kitchen and I went downstairs, had a shower, and as I was having a shower, I just had this overwhelming, like, crushing feeling where I like literally felt like I'd been kicked in the guts. And then when I walked upstairs, he was like almost white and I was like, are you okay? He's like, I just feel like this sense of dread. And I was like, oh, me too. I'm like, I literally feel like I've been punched in the guts. And then he was kind of like, me too. And then of course we both assessed, hang on, did we eat something? What's the thing? And then it was just like blaringly obvious to both of us that it was just like this energetic knot of having to say goodbye.
Oh, another one.
Yeah. So I think the feeling being so strong meant that I couldn't really deny it in the sense of like, oh yeah, it's just a holiday fling or whatever. And then I think noticing, I didn't say it then because I wasn't ready to. I was already like dealing with the confront of being like, oh, why do I actually viscerally feel sick about saying goodbye to someone? And then, yeah, it just kind of became more obvious. I think maybe the next time I saw him, I had the same feeling of like that complete butterflies of seeing someone and then that complete shutdown of having to like separate.
Yeah.
That I was just like, oh, I can't deny the strength of those feelings. And therefore, for me to see anybody else, that would feel like just a gap filler.
Yeah, wrong.
So,
Yeah.
if I don't feel like coffee, I'm not going to drink coffee.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, no, I don't feel like that. That'll make me anxious, or I don't feel. No.
Yeah.
You don't just, oh, well, this guy's available, so I'll,
Fuck it.
I'll do the thing and whatever. It just, it was just more a feeling.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think those visceral feelings made it impossible to excuse.
That's so cute. I love that so much. That's funny. It's cool. You talking about your feelings makes me realize my feelings more. I'm like, oh, that's a feeling. Oh, so cute. In my mind, we all have gifts.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if you had any tips on like heading towards your gifts.
Yeah, I feel like, but it is just pure experimentation. I know this isn't a spiritual example, it's a life example, but there is no way in the world that I ever would have thought I would have been a hairdresser or done so good at it, done so well at it. And the same with Chinese medicine. And turns out I had a gift for both.
Yeah.
But if you had given me the list, there's no way I would have chosen them. So I feel like through life will always breadcrumb you.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time when we're thinking or we're anxious, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
How can we hear?
Yeah, fuck.
If largely you always had that friend around that was always on their phone, always staring at other things, would ask you a question, hey, how's this going? And the second you try to answer, they're like, yeah, well, I'm going this, and whatever the thing is, you'd be like, cool, there's no actual relationship here because this person isn't available.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time with our spiritual gifts, we aren't available.
Yeah.
So why would they be like, hey, I'm really obvious. You've got a really good intuition, foresight, third eye, clairaudience, clairsentience, proprioceptive feelings, whatever those things are, you're not fucking listening anyway.
Yeah. Oh.
So even if those things are arriving to you, you're so busy in here that you don't feel them.
Yeah.
So that comes to feelings, not thinkings. Like, feel your way through life, don't think your way through life, especially when it comes to those things. But of course, once again, heads and tails, I don't want to totally make the mind bad. We still want to use it and consolidate with it.
Yeah.
We just don't want it to be the total dictator of mass control.
Yeah.
You know, we want our brain and our body to have a diplomatic relationship where both sides are heard.
I wondered if we could talk a little bit about getting the head and the heart to work together.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we need to acknowledge, and you and I have probably spoken about it, I'm not sure if we've spoken about it here or not, is we need to actually really acknowledge that the heart is really intelligent.
Super. Yeah.
Because I feel like without that, when we talk about heart things, it is too easy to deny of like, oh, that's fluffy, or, you know, blah, 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 blah. So the heart is intuitive to feeling. So the more we get to know our heart, the more that it can be refined. So if we don't know our heart, it can be used, I don't know if sloppy is the right word. Like, the heart is to be exercised, I guess, just like a muscle. Because I know that most people have those examples about like, yeah, but what about that person that falls in love with the toxic person, and, you know, why aren't they using their head? And sometimes that might be very applicable, that they need to actually strengthen their head over their heart. But sometimes they're in a co-conspiracy together where the head is actually saying, no, you're safer with this person.
Yeah.
So it's not just a heart problem.
Yeah.
But in normal reality,
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, that example of just trying to discern what's a thinking and what's a feeling.
Yeah.
You know, so if we're trying to make a decision, and you might be like, no, this is what feels right.
Yeah.
And you're like, even your tone of voice suggests that that was a thinking. And listen to both sides.
Yeah.
But just to be like, cool, the more we quieten down, the more we can feel. So if you're not a meditator, if you're not a whatever, you always have to brush your teeth. You always have to do a shit. You always have to, whatever those things are in life, that you can be like, cool, what happens if I actually sit down, take a moment to brush my teeth? If I breathe into my body and I ask myself from a far more quiet space, how do I feel about that? And chances are it instantly comes.
Yeah.
It's that when it comes, and then when we question, oh, I didn't think that would be the answer. Are you sure? That sort of can unfold. Or sometimes maybe the answer's not ready to be given yet, or could be plenty of other things. But the more quiet we are, the more that we can discern what a feeling is. And then we can give the mic over to the mind and go, cool, now pick out all the problems.
Yeah.
Tell me all the reasons why I should or shouldn't, or, you know,
Yeah.
But then sometimes we actually need to make an active decision so that we know who's in control.
Yeah.
Okay, am I going to give this choice to the head or the heart?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Because if I give this choice to the heart, the head's like, you're going to get your heart broken. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. And just having to be like, okay, cool. I'm aware that this could be catastrophic for my feelings. However, to go against my feelings is equally as catastrophic.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to have my heart smudged than what I would to ignore it.
Yeah.
Because the more I put that heart in a box constantly, because the mind's like, shh, 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 then I don't know how to feel anymore. Yeah. And then it's a little bit like if I was stuck in a prison cell and I had muscle atrophy, once again, I'd have to start with the little weights.
Yeah.
And then I'd start with little things of like, okay, do I want a jigsaw or do I want to play cards? And then be like, okay, cool, how do I feel? And then even if I'm like, I guess I'll do a jigsaw, start doing the jigsaw. How does it feel?
Yeah.
Are you like, oh, this feels good, but I kind of still want to play cards?
Yeah.
Or are you like, nah, this was definitely the right choice?
Mm.
Or you're playing the jigsaw and go, you know what, fuck it. The truth is I actually want to play cards.
Yeah.
You experiment.
Yeah.
You use duality
Yeah.
to help you discern. But discernment is like, Kurt once said to me, it's like if you were listening to a song and there's the drums, the bass, the lead guitar. Sorry for all the musicians out there. I don't really know what else is involved. But you know, sometimes you're like, oh my God, this guitar bit, this guitar bit. All the other music's going on, but that guitar bit makes you feel something.
Yeah.
And of course, it's in combination. We don't want to deny the other instruments, but then you might go from that to like, then you completely forget the guitar and you go to the drums.
Mm.
So every situation and every decision is almost like this symphony.
Yeah.
But if we listen, what's the bit that stands out to us most, and then follow that? Because that's flirting with your attention. So there's something to be explored there, even if it's, you know, if they were all cardboard boxes wrapped in the same brown paper. One was the drums, one was this, and one was that. And you're like, yes, yes, the ping pong ball is in B because that's the one that I'm like most drawn to.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you open that and you go, fuck, it's not here.
Yeah.
But cool, because then you've only got 3 other boxes. You've already eliminated that wasn't your box. And sometimes that's just as valuable as, you know, A. And then you're like, fuck yeah, I got the ping pong ball.
Definitely ignored a lot of feeling in my time. Probably to avoid disappointment though.
To me too, because I was scared of failing. It always seems so painful.
Yeah, it does always seem so. But then when you get to feel the happy things, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what a surprise. I like this sentence. Your path reveals your resilience. What do you think of that?
For me personally, I believe that we've all got certain challenges that we have to face in this life.
Yeah.
So once again, this is my masculine, but I'm like, well, come on, let's get it done.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Cool.
And like, I guess when you see that those challenges are put there to help you to see.
Yeah.
So like in that example of if there was 4 boxes and I choose, yep, I'm going to choose C, and I unwrap it and there's nothing there. As I said, that's just as valuable as if I found it, because maybe I needed to stay with that song for a longer duration of time.
Yeah.
And if I always got first place first and went through every song like A, B, C, D, 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 D.
Too easy, no lessons.
Yeah, totally. And then the more that I do that and practice, it strengthens my intuition.
Yeah.
That chances are I would then go through a hell of a lot of boxes real quick.
Yeah.
Because I'd figured the formula or the pull or whatever.
That's it.
But then I'd hit the glass ceiling and you almost have to start again.
Yeah.
And then all the boxes, all the boxes seem like, fuck, I was so good at this, or I was so whatever, but the game gets harder and harder and harder and more pointed.
Yeah.
But in a way, because it's dualism, it also gets easier and easier and easier and more broad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like allowing those forces.
Yeah. So scans. What's something to wrap up the episode, something that you're focusing on this year? Do you have a soul focus?
Yeah. Experimenting, curiosity, play are the best things that we could ever have. And obviously presence is our biggest gift.
Experimenting, curiosity, play, and presence. Thank you, sis.
Pleasure, treasure.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Yay! Thank you, little camera, for not fucking up.